Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. It is January 6th of 2024, and it is the first meeting of the race for the new year. I'm Nancy Moore, and I will be the facilitator for today. Um, First, we start off the meeting for new people who haven't been here before um, with reading the guidelines, the slogan, and the land acknowledgement. So I'll start off with our slogan. Erace is the slogan of the group Erace, which was formed in New Orleans in the summer of 1993. We seek ways through person to person communication to show that we are committed to treating all human beings with love, respect, empathy, compassion, and humility. Join us. Erasing is an organization that does not espouse any political party. We have no religious affiliation. We believe in the acceptance of all people and no personal attacks of any kind will be tolerated. We come with the intention to listen, learn, and not to argue. Okay, next is the land acknowledgement. And that starts off. We begin today by acknowledging that what we know as the United States is the ancestral and unceded territory of many indigenous peoples, and that there are many more nations and tribes that could be named here. Members of our meeting group today are on the lands of the Chitimacha, Choctaw in New Orleans, the Creeks and Cherokees in Atlanta, the Tonkawan, Lipan, Apache, and Comanche in Austin, the Lenape and Piscataway in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, the Wampanoag, Nipmuc peoples in Boston, the Kalua and Mojave in Riverside, California, and the Lumbee in Fayetteville. We thank their ancestors for being stewards of these lands through their generations and through today. We need to protect and honor the history and the people of these places. During centuries of colonial theft and violence, we should always remember that we are still on indigenous land and it will always be indigenous land. Okay. So first, we're gonna go around and introduce ourselves to everyone, each other. And like I said, my name is Nancy Moore, and I will call you in the order that I see you on the screen. And I'll start with Leonetta. Leonetta?
Did you say me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
So,
I could barely hear you. I'm sorry. Good morning, everybody. I've been a member since I was an intern for Erace, and I'm in New Orleans, and I think that was in 2000. I think that was when that was.
okay. Thank you, Leonetta. Phyllis?
Good morning, I'm Phyllis. I've been coming since 2008 and I'm in New Orleans.
Thank you. Beatrice?
Hi, good morning. I'm Beatrice. I'm here in East Point, Georgia. Been coming since 1993 when I lived in New Orleans, and co-founder with my deceased husband, Larry, of the Atlanta Erace Group. Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Hello, Happy New Year. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia also. I contacted Beatrice because I was interested in having discussions and just interested in your group. So she invited me to come in. So here I am. Hello.
Oh, well, thank you. Welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
Marla.
Hey, good morning. I'm Marla. I'm in Metairie, which is near New Orleans, and I've been coming to Erace since around 2019-ish, I think. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Cheryl.
Good morning, everyone. I'm in New Orleans, previously known as Bulbancha. I have been coming to meetings. I found out about you before Katrina and have been spotty ever since.
Thank you. Larry?
Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. I'm Larry. I started coming to Erace in about 1995. I'm here in New Orleans and looking forward to the conversation today.
Thank you. And Teresa?
Right, ma'am, you have a good one.
Thank you.
Have a good day, ma'am.
All right. Sorry, y'all. I'm in Food Lion, but I just finished. Okay, this is Teresa. I'm in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I've been coming since August 2022. Very happy to listen to you guys as I have my dental appointment. So hopefully this is really entertaining.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. Glenn, Glenn, are you there? Glenn?
Glenn, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, I ain't know nobody that asked me to introduce myself. I'm Glenn Abdullah. I've been coming to meetings since 1994. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'll explain the format of the meeting. A couple housekeeping rules. Please put yourself on mute, which is the little microphone at the bottom. There's a start and stop video in case you want to stop your video for whatever reason. Oh, Jean. Jean, would you like to introduce yourself? We just got started. Where'd you go? There she is. Jean, you were unmuted. Jean, can you hear me? Well, unmute yourself and there you go.
Yeah, now I can hear you. Sorry, I overslept.
Okay, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Jean Walker. I live in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I've been participating in Erace for, I think, for a couple of years, sometime during the pandemic. Okay, and it's good morning to everybody.
Good morning, Jean.
Yes.
Okay, so, excuse me, I have a lingering cold that won't go away. Our discussion begins by the speakers making comments, but to do that, you have to raise your finger to get on the list. We speak in order of the list. We try to keep our comments to about 2 minutes. We are respectful. We do not interrupt the speaker. We have no side comments, no personal attacks, no profanity, and no name calling. Point of the discussion is to listen, learn, and not to argue. You can ask a clarifying question of the speaker by raising 2 fingers so that I can see it. And that is limited to, I did not understand what you meant by, or could you please further explain what you meant by? Okay. And only 2 clarifying questions per speaker. At the end of, getting close to the end of the meeting, around 11:15 or so, we will have a final wrap up where you would be given 1 minute to give your final thoughts. At any time we can call point of order because there's no cross talking. And during the wrap up, if you don't have any final comments, you can just pass. That's fine too. Okay, and then we'll have announcements. All right, so the reason that I brought this topic, I was listening, I guess on Wednesday, to WWL, as I do every day. And I was listening to Newell Norman, and he started, I don't typically listen to him, but sometimes I just forget to turn the radio off because I feel he's very negative. He just has a very negative viewpoint towards everything. And he does this segment called Red Meat Roundup, which is very extreme right radical rhetoric that he, you know, talks about. And he started in on Claudine Gay and her resignation. And why would she resign if she was innocent? You know, he just didn't seem to understand that the pressure and the threats that this woman was under. And okay, I'm trying to talk loud. I've never had a problem. Maybe this is old. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Um, why would she resign? He just could not understand that if you're innocent, why you would resign, even in the face of these attacks. So I really hadn't followed it much. Um, I had been, particularly for the most part, under over the holidays, not feeling well and just not paying a whole lot of attention to anything because that's just how bad I felt. But anyway, it motivated me to find out more about what he was talking about. And so I decided to pick it for an article. And hopefully some of you who understand more about it can shed more light on what happened with her. I did my own research in researching these articles, and this was the best one that I found in saying, well, Phyllis also found some others, but in explaining why it is so important that this woman was literally forced out of office and her reputation being attacked, that she plagiarized her dissertation, um, which it was done in 1997. Anyway, I'll talk about that afterwards. Let's get started. Who wants to be first on the list? Not everybody jump. I know Phyllis had a lot of good articles about, there we go, Phyllis. All right. And I'll be keeping time.
Well, I'm not even sure where to start because I've been listening to so many different things about her. I guess first I'll start with the Senate committee hearing about alleged anti-Semitism on campuses that several United States college presidents, university presidents were brought in to discuss and get yelled at by some crazy woman from New York, who's like a representative or something up there. And I felt watching that none of them seemed to have been prepped for their time before the committee or before that woman. They didn't seem to know how to answer the questions. They didn't seem to know how to respond to the basic terms that were being thrown out, like intifada and jihad, because those are used incorrectly by the West, who show no understanding of what they mean in the concept of the spirituality of Islam. So that's the first time I became aware. And then I know the white president, who was a woman, she resigned pretty quickly after that. But Claudine Gay was holding on at Harvard. And then I guess there's a lot of pro-Israeli donors and alum at Harvard who forced her out. And I understand also she got death threats and of course was attacked racially, verbally racially. And if that's my 2 minutes, I'll get back on the list.
You got 6 seconds. You timed it pretty well. Okay. Next. Beatrice.
First, I'm really glad that Stephanie set, I'm sorry, that Phyllis set the stage for the Erace January show. And I really think that these educators were not only were they not prepared in terms of what the questions were going to be and what the terms would be, but for the environment that they were going to be in, that this was not, nobody was looking at parsing answers and making phrases understandable, that they were there to be attacked. And there was an agenda, which I think was extremely unfortunate. I was glad that Claudine Gay had hung on so long in her position and had not resigned right away. But there were forces against her that had nothing to do with, and I heard Elijah Muhammad's grandson saying that the what they were calling plagiarism was like on a scale of 1 to 3, it was like 1, and some citations that were not there. And he was almost saying that many people make that kind of error, but that that conduct would not have caused her to be replaced and taken out of her position if Harvard had hung on. So that is a minor. The idea, as soon as she ascended to that position, there were forces who thought she should not be there. And so these were the circumstances that would lead to her demise. And if you look at the people, this Rufo guy is the one who put the critical race theory issue before the public and made it the big boogaboo that it became. It is very unfortunate, and it does matter. If you look at the title of this editorial, this article, it is tragic that this woman has been pilloried, that she, in the position in which she had been for so short a time, and it comes to this diversity, equity, and inclusion, that there are people who are allied against that, and there is not an understanding that Israel, the state, the Israel government can be wrong in how things are going. So I'm done. I'll tell you.
Okay, I was just gonna say you can get back on the list.
I will
All
later.
right.
Thank you, Nancy.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Marla.
Yeah, just kind of piggybacking on some of what Beatrice said. When I first heard about all of this, I immediately thought, of course, the anti-DEI people are going to use this now as a reason for why DEI is not something positive, right? It's kind of like a gotcha moment for them, in that because they firmly believe that Claudine was hired because she was Black, right? So to them, they don't see any benefit in having diversity in the workplace, and they think that it's a complete crock. So that to me is a very, very unfortunate fallout from this, but also expected. And I had another thought, and I can't think of it now. So we can move along, and I'll come back if I get back on the list if I think of it.
Okay, thank you. Phyllis again.
So I wanted to address the plagiarism charge. I listened to a couple of things, and one of them was explaining that, okay, first she wrote her dissertation and presented it in 1997. So different world from now in terms of, the Chat GPT and the AI that people can use
Larry.
for papers. The part of her dissertation that was charged with plagiarism was the methods section, or the methodology section, where she's not really citing, she's just kind of discussing what she refers to different people's work, because it's how she proceeded with her own research. And when she goes into her own research and in the introduction before the methodology section, that's appropriately cited. If everybody in the country who did a dissertation in the past had to go and review it for current standards, they'd have to republish everything. So this was just a way that this evil little Russo guy, or Rufo, whatever his name is, found to try to undermine a smart African-American woman in a position of power that clearly shriveled him a little bit. And I think I hope she gets her gets justice, because it's just really wrong how this happened. She was only in that office for 6 months. And they did her wrong by also not preparing her for that hearing. As I said, I think they set her up. Yeah, I don't agree that she was actually guilty of plagiarism. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Glenn and Larry. Would anyone else like to be on the list? Okay, Stephanie. All right, Glenn.
Well, when she went to that hearing on Capitol Hill, they asked her a question. I can't remember what the question was, but she didn't answer it. She didn't answer it correctly. I mean, do you believe that Israel should be annihilated? It was some kind of question like that. Should be annihilated or something like, and she couldn't give a straight answer. That's, look, anybody right now who's in the media, you can work for CNN, or you're gonna get booted out if you're not pro-Israel. So it is the money and the power is behind Israel. And if you're gonna go up there and make a statement like that, the Israeli media, CNN, and all the rest of them is going to blow that up. But I can't understand why she couldn't answer on something that just was common sense, and just couldn't say, no, I don't agree with that Israel should be annihilated, or wherever it was that they had asked it along those lines. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you, Glenn. Next we have Larry.
Yes. I had wondered how long it would take for what I think is the real reason to come up. And that is this issue of anti-Semitism. If it were, the whole hearings were about anti-Semitism, were not about charges of anti-Semitism, Mrs. Gay, as well as the other woman that resigned, they would still have their jobs. So, I mean, when you got the powerful Jewish lobby who threatened to withdraw millions of dollars from Harvard, and the other universities, that was power. And it was power because the Jewish lobby have hijacked the term Semitism. I mean, in 1948, all the people that were in Palestine were called Semites, all of them. They were Semitic people. So the Jews somehow hijacked that term. And now anybody that says anything contrary to the Jews' aspiration to hold that whole land, that's why they're demolishing that land in Palestine. They don't intend for the Palestinians to come back. When they built all of those dwelling places, contrary to the United Nations and the worldview, they don't intend to demolish all those housing projects. So they're following the exact plan that they planned. And the United States is in with them lock, stock, and barrel. So I think this whole thing was that Ms. Gay did not satisfy the Jewish lobby in terms of denouncing anti-Semitism, when sometimes people can't even define what anti-Semitism is. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Next, we have Stephanie and then Phyllis. Would anyone else like to be on the list? Okay, Stephanie.
Okay. Well, thank you. The two things everything we're talking about here is thank you for thank you for this discussion. This is wonderful. Two of the things that came to my mind were that initially the Harvard Corporation supported her in the beginning and they stood behind her, and then they changed their minds. And what's scary about that and why I think this matters is it's beyond humans are now subject, every human, we're all subject now to taking sound bites and taking just things and turning them into whatever seems to benefit who's ever in power. And the fact that they the fact that she resigned, they did not fire her, I think is something we need to think about. And also that she's still on the faculty, which I think is wonderful. I think it's really embarrassing that they felt they couldn't stand, they changed their minds and didn't stand behind her when several, I think they said hundreds, I don't know how many hundred, but several Harvard faculty stood up for her and you know, and to be, and like everybody's talked about, to be in a congressional hearing like that. I don't know. I watched the Supreme Court hearings and they were interesting to me because now we've seen that several of those people didn't tell the truth. They changed from what they said in these hearings to what they are today. And this woman gave an answer based on being in the hot seat and, and trying to be correct and trying, what do you do? And then all this comes up. So I just want to, my feeling is it's important because we're in a climate now where this could happen. Oh, it will probably keep happening over and over. And that's what's scary.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. And you're right at 2 minutes. Perfect. Okay. Phyllis. And then the list is open if anyone would like to give their thoughts or opinions. Cheryl.
So yeah, I don't blame Dr. Gay, who I just found out is Roxane Gay's cousin. I did not know that. Did anybody else know that? No.
No, who is Roxane Gay?
Oh, you can Google her. She's a writer. She's well known. Pretty controversial. So, I mean, to some people. So the issue of these hearings was anti-Semitism on campus, which, some campuses even put off the Jewish Voice for Peace student groups for being anti-Semitic. So come on. And the Students for Justice in Palestine and the Jewish Voice for Peace students on campuses often create, like they collaborate on their work that they do. So I'm not going to blame her. I think that woman, Stefanik, thank you, Beatrice, was just so aggressive the way she addressed it, as if these women or people in front of her were the whole problem. And they could fix everything. And the current situation is that saying certain phrases, other people accuse you of saying you want Israel to not exist or saying you're anti-Semitic. And, I reject all that nonsense because no. I just don't agree with that kind of it's gaslighting. It's gaslighting. So how much time do I have?
9 seconds.
Okay, I'll get back on the list after some other people.
Well, there's nobody on the list right now after you. Oh, Cheryl.
Oh, Cheryl's
I'm sorry,
on the list.
Cheryl. Yeah, Cheryl's on the list. I'm sorry. And Cheryl, you're up.
Okay, I kind of feel like I'm going to ramble here, but thank you for letting me speak. I also am really glad that you picked this subject because the few people that I get to talk to about anything related to this a lot of times make the comment like, I don't have anybody to talk to about this, because if you say anything, you get thrown in a box. I had to ask a federal judge that comes in and gets massages from me. He's an ex-federal judge. What even went on? Like, what happened? Because I read articles before we started this about this subject because it came up on the news feed, and I couldn't make sense of it. And Jean, I also got up too late, so anyway, so he told me that her lawyers, did a terrible job and that she was set up. That was his opinion. He's a very democratic type person. And she was given very poor information, that the way that was poised, and I do believe I know what was said was, she was asked if students said that something like that the state of Israel should be disseminated, I believe was what it was. Should she, would that be considered, could that happen? And she said, well, in free speech, you can say things like that. The judge that I was with said that her attorneys really probably should have told her that no, that was improper speaking, and that it needed to go through a review system after a student would do something like that. Was really probably what she could have said, and it would have saved her. But I do believe, just as Larry, it was put together on purpose. We faced some stuff before. I feel like we're really losing grounds. In 2008, in January, the city council here was asked to join a boycott of Israel. And at first they took it on, but because they received extreme pressure, they took it away. Things like farmers wouldn't have Caterpillars, Caterpillar tractors anymore. I mean, poor John Deere, that we would not be able to buy our equipment from Israel, and too bad not make it here was the biggest one, is that we would lose because of them not giving us things back. But
Cheryl, would you like to get back on the list?
Okay, I'll see if I
Yes.
still want to go on.
Okay, I'll put you back right after this. Okay, you can continue. Glenn?
Well, I listened to the news yesterday, and the guy who's really behind pushing her out, a billionaire donor, he's the one that's behind this plagiarism. And he said he's not stopping with just her being set down as the chancellor or president. He wants her out of the university completely. But somebody else dug up some information on his wife. His wife is accused of plagiarism, and worse than what Miss Gay did. So I'll just leave that kind of information in there.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay, that's it. Okay. Well then, Cheryl, continue. Phyllis.
So I looked it up, and so you know how I do. I looked it up, and so the woman that presented it said the resolution as written protects everyone. She was of the New Orleans Palestinian Solidarity Committee. She accused the council members, Mitch Landrieu and others who opposed the resolution, to bowing to campaign contribution.
Nanetta. Cheryl, somehow you got muted.
Okay, where
there
was
you
I
go,
at?
You're back.
Okay, we have
You
to
on
ask.
Mitch Landrieu.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
last thing
Mitch Landrieu, and thank you, and others who opposed the resolution, bowing to campaign contributors. We have to ask ourselves, is the Zion lobby willing to continue to destroy and defame reputable social justice movements by using this scorched earth policy in order to deem anything that is a critique as anti-Semitic? Let's see. Arguing for rescinding the measures were the Anti-Defamation League, Jewish Federation, and other prominent members of the Jewish community including city council member who is now the head of, I think he's still serving as the head of the Jewish Federation here in New Orleans. Anyways, that's what I have to say.
Well, thank you, Cheryl. Okay, next we have Phyllis and then Leonetta.
So to that question about the scorched earth policy to call everything anti-Semitic, yeah, they are totally willing to do that, it seems. The attack on DEI in our institutions, I mean, it's ridiculous. Business research has shown that the more diversity in a company, the more profitable and successful they are, because they have more access to diverse ideas, because diverse people have diverse ideas. And this is just an ongoing attack, which, you know, we all knew was going on with when the previous president was in office. The trying to undermine the respected institutions, whether it's the courts, whether it's the healthcare system, well, respected, whether it's the university systems, or public education or libraries. I mean, they're totally trying to undermine and make people not have confidence in all those and other institutions. And it's just constantly surprising to me that almost every bit of major news has some tie to Israel or Palestine. I mean, the whole Epstein thing now has come out, and it seems that he may have been purposefully luring people in so that they could be blackmailed to make them pro-Israel. So that was interesting. Yeah, it's all connected. It's all very connected. And I just want to say, you know, another thing that I think Dr. Gay fell victim to was respectability politics, that she was gonna be respected if she acted a certain way, and that was to, you know, be calm. And she, of course, she should have been calm, but that when, you know, that Stefanik woman was not acting calm, she acted like she was, you know, at the Nuremberg trials, you know, interviewing Nazis. And that person's not even Jewish. At least Stefanik is not Jewish. She's Catholic. So, you know, we have to just really, we can't just take all the whatever information the mainstream media gives us. We have to dig for ourselves and look further into things, and definitely not going to throw Dr. Gay under the bus when I totally agree with what was said. She was set up. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. And next we have Leonetta, and the list is open. Okay, Leonetta.
Yes, I agree with Phyllis. She was set up. All three of those presidents were set up. That Congress lady came with an agenda. I don't know why those presidents did not know why that they were being thrown under the bus. I really don't know why they didn't know that what they were being like the Christians going into the what was the Colosseums. If that's what was happening. I don't know why they didn't know it. I knew it, and I wasn't there. But that's what had happened. And as far as the plagiarism, I think that was somebody that they were just looking for something, and like Phyllis and some of the other people on the this panel on the call that said what it was nitpicking. They went out of their way to go find something for her, and it was bigger than this. I think that this was people that just did not want her to be the over that university, and this was their opportunity to get her from that powerful position that she has, and it's the for her to have to go through these death threats. We're in America, we're in 2020 at the time, 2023. this is horrible for a president of a university to go through something like this. I think all three of them had death threats after this hearing. Uh, it's it's just unimaginable for an answer that they were set up to give at a congressional hearing. Um, it says something about our politics in America. It really does.
Thank you.
I
Thank
think
you.
my time's up, right, Nancy?
Yeah,
Okay.
it just went off. The list is open. Phyllis.
I think Beatrice
Go ahead.
waved a finger.
And Beatrice.
I
Okay.
think. Well, I want to say that this is not, Dr. Gay is not going to be the last person we see this happening to. And you know, there's already, well, here's what I want to say. This whole concept of like raising anti-Semitism as, you know, like if you say from the river to the sea, it means you don't want Israel to exist. But there was a survey done several years ago, and Israeli people responded that they wanted a one-state solution and wanted the Palestinians gone. And the Palestinians said they want one state and they want equal justice. So that's not to say doing away with the whole state of Israel. I've never heard a Muslim or Palestinian person say they think Israel shouldn't exist. Even the current Hamas charter does not say that, despite what you will hear on the media. And while they're getting all worked up about the, you know, people saying things, words being used, an imam was shot in New Jersey this week. A 6-year-old boy has been stabbed to death in this country. Another Muslim woman, a doctor, I believe, was killed sitting in a bench outside her building. Those 3 young men were shot in New England somewhere. I forget what state they were in, maybe Massachusetts, I don't know. And I haven't heard, and maybe, I mean, I think I would hear about it, of very many attacks on individual Jewish people, on rabbis, on Jewish schools, on synagogues. I haven't heard. I did hear, and I can't confirm this, that the ADL or APAC, one of them, has cited a rise in anti-Semitic attacks, but they included in those numbers every march that was pro-Palestine, where no violence has happened against anyone. So again, you can't just take words, you have to dig deeper and look into what's going on, because I really think the support for this genocide in this country is going to have lasting effects on the way the United States is able to move in the world. And we deserve a little smackdown, in my opinion, to stop trying to make everybody do what we want. That's it for now.
Thank you, Phyllis. Next, we have Beatrice, and the list is open.
I wanted to go back to the question that was asked of Dr. Gay, quoting in the article, asked by Stefanik whether calls for genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment. Gay responded, it can be depending on the context. And that word context is what made everybody crazy when she said that. Rather than speaking to people who are able to look at context and look at unwrapping things. She was talking to people who were looking for a certain answer, and because she didn't give that, that's it, she was wrong. And they say the answer should have just been yes. But when you have an academician, somebody that looks at information, circumstances, and situations, looks at context, looks at the deepening issues, she's not going to just answer yes. So she was wrong from the beginning. Well, she's wrong when she walked in there because the people had an agenda. I think the other thing is I have and people have said this in different ways, grave concerns about people who support Israel and the Jewish people and Jewish government, but cannot see the 78 years of wrong that have been perpetrated on Palestinians, the building, like Larry was talking about, the against UN regulations, building permanent settlements on occupied land, making Palestinians, creating what has been called the largest outdoor prison. Even if you support the fact that Jewish people deserve the homeland, where you are on that, wrong is wrong. The way if people are not treated as human beings, and God knows what is happening now. Netanyahu, with his bellicose personality, his need to be in power, trying to destroy a group that he's not going to destroy. And you got 22,000 people dead, children, women, no water. We have to, I think, have to be able, it's not supporting, it's not being anti-Semitic, it's not supporting Israel and the Jewish people. It is looking at what is right for human beings. How do we make life better for people who are living and breathing now? And so this woman, Dr. Gay, and then again, like Stephanie said, I'm glad she's still teaching there, is just, she's just been used, and she is not going to be the only one, as Glenn was saying. They're going to try to destroy everyone who is of the woke, supposedly woke group. It is a real tragedy, and I think we need to keep knowing that. I'm finished. I know you were going forward. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Larry? You can go, Larry.
When you look at this whole conflict, and everything that's got to do with anti-Semitism, you cannot talk about it without bringing in the religious nature of this conflict. For one to call himself a Jew means that one is a member of the religion of Judaism. To be a member of the religion of Judaism goes back to the laws of Moses. Going back to the laws of Moses reaches back to what the Jews said God promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and their descendants, the land of Canaan, which land they did establish for some time. And so when we look at what's going on over in Palestine, it is Netanyahu's and the Orthodox Jews and many others, it is their way of saying, we are reclaiming the land that God promised to our fathers, period. That includes all the land, not a two-state solution. They'll never go for a two-state solution. If there's going to be a two-state solution, that means the second state will have to have sovereignty for its own government, for its own military. And Israel would never settle for the Palestinians having their own sovereign military right next door to Israel. It'll never happen. So the plan is to conquer the whole land and to give nothing up. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Phyllis?
Well, I just want to comment that this is not really a religious conflict. I don't really think there is such a thing where two religions are fighting because they have disagreements about God. This is really a settler colonial project, Israel, that is trying to expand. It's trying to get some of Egypt, it's trying to get some of Lebanon, it's bombing Syria. I mean, there's a settler president a woman in Israel who has said that Israel is from the Nile to the Euphrates. That's more than from the river to the sea. And the ultra-Orthodox So the people in the Zionists, there are religious Jews who are Zionists. You don't have to be a religious Jew to be Jewish. You can be ethnically Jewish. The Zionists, Israel is very secular. Let me say that in its politics. You don't see rabbis, in the Knesset that I'm aware of. And there are also, there are Palestinians who are Muslim and Palestinians who are Christian. And back in the day, Palestinians who were Jewish. The state of Israel does not differentiate between Palestinian Muslims and Palestinian Christians in terms of being like the enemy, as we see by the churches that have been bombed in Gaza and the attacks on Christians in the West Bank. The ultra-Orthodox actually don't recognize the state of Israel because in their mind it's not what a Jewish state should be. And they actually show up at a lot of pro-Palestinian protests in support of Palestine. So this is, as usual, capitalism, greed, power, land grabs, resource grabs. Religion's got nothing to do with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. Next we have Cheryl.
There's something when I write to the president every week or once or twice to talk about how I want my country not to support sending military weapons to other places because as silly as it is, I do like the way that Martin Luther King thought and have a very idealistic mind, and I am a very fortunate woman to be able to maintain my views and feel this way, and I'm thankful for it every day and realize that I am very fortunate to be given the persona and the ability to do what I like doing. But when I write to him, I always talk about the re-traumatizing factor of people. And I think until we learn as human beings, and I don't know that we're going to, I find myself very pessimistic sometimes, although I'm going to enjoy life that I've been blessed to have, that, until we stop re-traumatizing, one of the things I'll write about is the children that are going through this and the people that are going through this, what we are creating for the world to come. For my friends' grandchildren in the future, if we don't, blow this place up before that. And no one's really, that's why I can't understand it because they're not going to create a peaceful place. It looks like it's going to be in turmoil forever there to me. I just have to take my plan is to take gas that has ecstasy in it and spray it all over the world and then go in with certain troops in little suits that are almost invisible and take all the guns and the bad stuff out. And then that's my plan for a better world. Thanks for letting me talk.
Thank you, Cheryl. Next we have Larry.
To deny that this is about religion is not about religion is to deny reality. I mean, just the term Israel in itself, just the word Jew, Judaism, all that goes back to the Old Testament. So how can we say, and you go back and you talk about the 12 sons of Isaac, and you talk about the 12 sons of Ishmael, and Ishmael being the father of the Arab people today, who claim that they were the original 12 sons that God promised that land to. So it is almost like saying what we're facing in America does not have a religious foundation to it. It was the white people in America who claimed that they were ordained by God to displace the Indians off their land, that they were ordained by God to bring a quote unquote inferior people over from Africa and enslave them, that they were ordained by God to make the whole Western world a Christian world. So that it is almost like being in denial that where we are today does not have a religious foundation to it. And until we face some of these issues and keep skirting and quit skirting the issue, we'll never come to any kind of conclusion. And we'll be fighting the same battle of racism and religion for the next 1,000 years, if God allows to be around that long, which I don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Anyone else like to be on the list?
Yeah, you can put me on.
Okay, well, go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, I agree with both Phyllis and Larry. It's not in Phyllis' view.
Phyllis.
It's huh?
No,
In
go ahead.
Phyllis' view, yes, it's not about religion, because if they were following the text of the religion, they couldn't do what they're doing if they were really following it. But they're not following it. They're following their own interpretation and hiding behind the guise of religion. It's a dirty religion, and yeah. So yeah, they're using religion. Not Yahoo don't even believe in God, but he's using scripture. He's using the scripture to validate what he's doing, and using it with the wrong interpretation, the wrong emphasis on the scripture. And that's my opinion.
Well, thank you. Phyllis.
Cheryl has a clarifying question for Glenn.
Okay, go ahead, Cheryl.
Hey, Glenn, where do you research that not Elihu doesn't believe in God?
Oh, what he's doing, nobody could believe in God.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I actually have a clarifying before I go.
Okay.
Glenn, when you said it's a dirty religion. Can you clarify what you meant by that?
Meaning that it's not a religion from God. If they, like I said, if they were following the text, the true meaning of what God has in there, they couldn't do what they do. The Jews supposed to say an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That would have been if they would follow that rule, it would have been 1,200 Palestinians. But they don't want an eye for an eye and tooth for tooth. They want the funeral, the casket, and the body in it. They want everything.
Thank you. After they remove the organs and some skin. So yeah, just because somebody claims to be religious doesn't mean they really are. That's why I don't think the Christian nationalists in this country are really Christians. I don't think, even if Netanyahu does believe in God, I don't think he's really a practicing Jew following his faith. But all religions are very open to interpretation by people. And some people might, there are Jewish people who say Jewish people should be working for justice in the world in all areas. And there are some who say we have a right to have this land because the ancient real estate broker of the goat herders has deemed it ours. I mean, that's insane. I just posted a reel today where an Italian woman goes to, it's a joke, goes to the home of a British person in Bath, England, and claims his house because that used to be a Roman city and she's descended from the Romans. And that's exactly the nonsense. And she claims that he's an anti-Jupiterite because he doesn't accept her religious belief. That's exactly the ridiculousness of the Zionist argument that, I don't say any country has the right to exist. I don't say Well, it's international law that an
Larry?
occupying force does not have a right to defend itself against the occupied people. They do not have a right. And there were less than 1,200 Israeli citizens, civilians, killed by Hamas that day. Many of them were killed by the Israeli forces, who are obviously poorly trained and would rather do away with their own people than allow an attack. There's something they've had in place called the Hannibal Directive, where they don't allow people, soldiers or civilians, to be taken hostage if they can stop it. So there's a lot to learn about this conflict.
Yes. Okay. Larry?
Netanyahu evoked the name of Amalekite. If you don't think this has a religious foundation to it, Netanyahu evoked the name Amalekite. What did that have reference to? It had reference to in the book of Exodus, when Moses was leading the children of Israel to the promised land, and a group called the Amalekites got in their way and fought against Israel. And according to the Bible, God promised revenge on the Amalekites and said that he was going to wipe the Amalekites' name off the face of the earth. So when Netanyahu evoked the name of the Amalekites, he was referring to that time. And 400 years later, when it came time for God to get revenge, he told King Saul to now go and smite Amalekite and utterly destroy all that they have and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, oxen and sheep, camel and ass. Now, this is what Netanyahu was gone on when he didn't have no problem with killing infants and children. He was going back to the religion of the Jews. So how long we're going to continue to be in denial? And if you shake your head, refute that. Refute it. That's all. I'm just telling you what is printed. Now, whether you want to believe what is printed or not is one thing, but refute what I said based on other evidence. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have Phyllis, and okay, it's only 11:06. We got a few more minutes.
So yeah, I've been refuting it, and I will continue to do so. You know, Donald Trump stood in front of a church and held a Bible. That doesn't make him a Christian. Anybody can read anybody's holy text, their own or somebody else's, and find something to cite in it, just because that's what he's using to manipulate. Heck, Christian Zionists here really is who he's talking to when he gave that speech in English. I believe he did. Maybe he gave it in both languages, Hebrew and English, but
Beatrice.
that doesn't mean that he is representing the Jewish religion. There's a lot of rabbis who would say that's not how you use that text. And also you could argue that given the history, behaving that way towards other people really didn't benefit the Israelites. They weren't Israel, they were the Israelites. Yeah, I think I almost feel like you want religions to be fighting, Larry, when this is just political people using religion because they know they can manipulate and gaslight people with it. I don't know what else to say.
Thank you. All right. We have Beatrice, and she will be the last person, and then we will go to the wrap up. Okay, unmute yourself.
Right here.
There you go.
Okay. I'm just going back to a quote from Ron Halber, who was the executive director of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington. And he's saying that university presidents have to understand that speech can create an environment where Jewish students feel physically intimidated. Now, that to me is indication that some students are awfully weak. They're awfully weak. If there cannot be a a discussion, a demonstration, whatever that form of speech has taken, that for them to feel physically intimidated, to me indicates that we need to work with students so they know how to hold up and stand up. Because I think I put that as Ruby Bridges walking through people hollering at her and screaming at her, and she made it into school, and all, you know, those of us, I just think we need to take a different look at how we interpret what people are doing and saying, and always and taking it to the level of physical intimidation. Somebody's talking about genocide, so we need to watch, they're going to kill us. I mean, I just think this is greatly this is overreach, and people need to be able to know how to stand up to speech that they feel threatens them. I'm just thinking about how African Americans in the civil rights movement and how people persevered and pursued against dogs and fire hoses, and even now the intimidation that African American people feel at the hands of police. I mean, extrajudicial killings. I mean, there's just a whole history that there is a group of people that have stood up against a whole lot of mess, and we are still here. And so these people, somebody was saying something that they felt because they were supporting Israel against Palestine, whatever. They felt physically intimidated. I just find that's disgusting to me. I'm sorry. You know, I'm not sympathetic about that.
Okay, thank you, Beatrice. Okay, we're going to go to the wrap up, and during the wrap up, you get a minute to give your final thoughts. People who have not spoke at all during the meeting get a full 2 minutes, and we'll start with them. And that was Jean. Jean was the only person that did not say something during the meeting. And so, Jean, you get a full 2 minutes to give your final thoughts.
I don't really have any final thoughts. It's like there's just so much that's going on, and there's so many issues that we're dealing with. And when you look at, you know, what's going on in the Middle East, and what happened with Dr. Gay, I mean, there's just too much that's happening that shouldn't be happening, and I just pray every day that things get better, but they don't seem to, and we have to do more than that anyway. So I'm sorry, I just am at loss for words today.
Okay, thank you, Jean. Also, Teresa, you didn't get a chance to speak if you're able to, and you'd like to. And she might have some packing and spray in her mouth right about now. So, all right, Teresa, we'll think about you, okay, as everyone else is giving their final thoughts. Okay, so I will, you get a minute, and I will, okay, there we go. As I call you, as I see you on the screen. Leonetta, your final thoughts.
This was a wonderful topic. I'm glad I had somebody to talk to about this topic because it was bothering me. I didn't have anybody to talk about this to. And I hope that she doesn't, she keeps her job on the faculty, that they don't succeed in getting her off of off the faculty at Harvard, because she's a very well educated woman. She brings something to that university, and I wish her well in her career.
All right. Thank you, Leonetta. Phyllis?
Well, I just want to say, back in the day, people thought, one, that the Northern Irish conflict was also a religious conflict, which it was not. And two, also that it was never going to end, which it has. And that area has found peace. Now, if it could be reunited with Ireland, that would be even better, and not be under British rule. But that's why I hold out hope that some peaceful solution for all the people there can actually happen. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Phyllis. Stephanie?
Thank you. Thank you for letting me be here today. I'm like Sheila and like Leonetta that who would I talk to? And so I'm glad I was able to be here. I worry, today's discussion brought up even more things that I hadn't thought about and I need to learn more about. But also I just worry as we go, here we are at the beginning of 2024, and I wish it would just be a peaceful year, but I'm kind of afraid it might not be. So I'm glad this group exists, and I hope we talk about things going forward that are important.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for joining us today. Hope to see you again. Okay, Cheryl.
Thank you, everyone, for all of your opinions. It is really wonderful to be able to. I hope
There
you
you
all
go.
are having a very good New Year, and I'll see you again. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Larry.
The power of a group like Eracism is that we all not be on the same page, and that we all are not afraid to express contrary opinions. That's where the power and authority of a group like this come from. And we are a diverse group. We are, we think differently, we look differently, we act differently, we have different opinions. And, the whole Northern Ireland conflict was always presented as a conflict between the Catholics and the Protestants. So that's religion, that's religion. And while I would agree that the vast majority of the Israelites are secular, there is nevertheless a religious group of Orthodox Jews who are putting pressure on Netanyahu and the government to get the whole land back and reclaim it because God promised it to them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Next, we have Beatrice.
Thanks, Nancy, for the article and everyone for the conversation. Cheryl, I will smile always at your ecstasy gas and the taking of the guns. It'll just bring joy to my heart, baby, if we could just do it. Thanks, everybody. Happy New Year again. And Stephanie, glad you did join us. Look forward to seeing you in our meeting in Atlanta. Thank you.
Thank you, Beatrice. Marla.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this article. And I certainly feel a glimmer of hope when I join all of you, because I think sometimes, I don't know about y'all, but I feel very isolated from many of the general public, and thinking about a lot of these issues, sort of like what Cheryl said too, just can be very isolating. Just don't really feel like you can connect with folks because folks are very inward thinking and inward acting, and they maybe don't want to interact so much outside of their own circle. So back to the Claudine Gay thing, I think for me, this just once again brought home that Black and brown women constantly have to prove themselves in a way that we white women will never have to do, just simply because of the color of their skin. And that we white folks look for ways to find slip-ups and target constantly, and to push those folks, particularly women, out of those positions, women of color, out of those positions of power. And again, I mean, I harp on it all the time, but in this country, we continue to value guns and money over human lives. And that's what, with this beginning of the new year and the shooting in Iowa, another white kid who was bullied, that the entire system failed, including the kid himself. It is hard to remain hopeful, but here I am, still remaining a little hopeful. So thanks to everybody for your input, and welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you, Marla. Teresa, are you available?
I think she said no in her in the chat.
In the chat, she said no. Okay, thank you, Marla. Um, Glenn, last but not least, we have Glenn to wrap up.
Okay, we used to have a saying in the 60s. Everything is real. And that money that flows into Harvard, that's going to speak louder than words. And Harvard can maintain its greatness because they can afford to to have the best professors, the best everything, because they can afford it, and they could not do it just from tuition. LSU can't compete with Harvard because they don't have the money that Harvard has coming into it. So they got to look at the bottom line. And if it take tossing Gay out, they'll toss Gay out because they're not going to become an average university. That's it.
Well, thank you, Glenn, and thanks everybody. A few things that I wanted to point out at the end of this discussion was one, this article was about um, Claudine Gay's her treatment, her short-lived tenure. She's the only she was the first Black president and the second woman to be president of Harvard, which is very historic. But it also addressed the future of minorities and women in high powered positions. We're always under a microscope, always. You have to, you have to think and plan what you're going to say before the situation even happens. You got to be prepared. It's like playing laser tag. You don't know where it's going to come from, but it's coming some way where it's coming, and you got to be ready for it. So anyway, I thought the article was very good to point that out, that it does matter for it because of the future of women and minorities in high power positions. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that conflicts, I mean, at this time it's a conflict with, and I'm not very well versed on the origins either. I will admit that I'm not. Okay. I was listening to Bill Maher a couple of weeks ago where he was saying, and he's what is he? He's atheist, but he on this particular issue he was pro Jewish, okay, because he is part Jewish, okay, and he said most people do not understand the origins of this conflict. They don't, and I admit I don't. I was looking for an article originally to address the history of anti-Semitism because I do not understand it as well as I should. Okay, but I found this and I like this better. But I wanted to just go back to talk about religious conflicts. A lot of times, couples, this is just going back to human nature. Couples, a lot of times, will argue about the toilet seat being left up. The argument really is not about the toilet seat being left up. It is a power struggle within the relationship. And the issue that's being used for this to play out is the toilet seat being left up, or the shoes left on the floor, or the garbage lid not being closed. I mean, there's always something else, but there's other underlying issues that are behind the obstacle. And I think that has a lot to do with what is going on right now. That there are underlying issues going on that's being used behind the mask of religion. And that's just my thought. So anyway, we can end the meeting now.